Anybody that is really within my network has in some way, shape, or form been with these guys on the Q&A. The likes of Martin Rooney, okay? J.L. Holdsworth, to this day, close personal friend. James Smith, Buddy Morris, okay? Joe Ken. It's the who's who in this field, guys. Let me just say this, guys. I'm really excited to be here, especially because if you look back at my career and myself growing up in this profession, Elite Fitness has played a major role in that, especially from the people that I've met that have been involved with Elite Fitness since it started in 1998. With that being said, today I'm going to talk about when bird hangs around with bats. That's a quote from Martin Rooney that I got very early on in my career, and it's finished with, you end up hanging upside down. Again, there's been a common theme around here, and it's been learning. Every coach that's got up here has expressed the importance of that and expressed the importance of being around the right type of people, okay? I've been very fortunate along the way. It's like, you know, you blink, and you got 20 years in the profession. You know, there's people here that I've known for 30 years, there's people I've known for 20 years, 20 plus. A lot of good friends inside here today, and it goes by quick. So what ends up happening is everybody knows Steve Jobs, okay? I spent the last 10 years in San Francisco, and it is the hotbed of technology and innovation. You cannot be not influenced by the things that are going on around you in the environment, okay? The year was 2005. He gave the commencement speech at Stanford. How many of you have heard that speech? Okay, very good one. He went on to say it was the closest that he has gotten to graduation. It was a great speech. And in that speech, he told 3 powerful stories. The first was connecting the dots. How he went from a college dropout, which was the best thing that has happened to him, to becoming an owner and inventor of $1 billion company, okay? 2 guys in a garage with an idea created a $2 billion company in 2 years. Connect the dots. Often in this rat race we're in, guys, I'm telling you, you go from one season to the next, then it's OTAs, then it's camp, then it's this, then it's that. I'm telling you, do yourselves a favor, sometimes take a step back, reflect on where you've been, okay? And you will connect the dots. And you'll see, it may not have been the most conventional path, much like mine, okay? But it was one in which was able, you know, that was a great lesson to be learned in terms of your development, okay? I've done it all the time. It's been very beneficial. The second story he talked about is love and loss. You gotta love what you do. I love this profession. I don't sleep over this stuff. I'm sitting back in the back room. They told me I'm last. I'm not very patient. I was excited to be here. I love what I do, okay? The loss part is, did you know Steve Jobs, obviously, he got fired from the company he created, okay? What it gave him was a couple things. It gave him a little humble pie and a little medicine, in which he claimed to say that he needed, okay? It also took the heaviness of success and was able to convert that into the lightness of being a beginner. Now, I've been doing martial arts my whole life. There's one thing I've always taken with me from martial arts, and that is keeping a beginner's mentality, a white belt mentality. I've taken that with me. You're always learning, okay? The third story he talked about was death. And it was at the time when he was diagnosed with cancer. You guys all know the story. It was at that time that his vision of what he was meant to do was very clear. He didn't listen to the outside noise, okay? It was a creative time for him because he saw that, hey, guess what? I got one opportunity for this. I got one at bat, and I'm going to make the most of it. Again, I try to look, I challenge you to think outside of the weight room for the most part, okay? For me, I don't even think about weight room stuff anymore. I'm past it. I'm looking at other domains, other professions. I'm learning everywhere. Again, Team Elite Fitness. Well, let me say this first of all. Everybody knows James Smith, right? For the most part, okay? I got some advice for you. How many of you got his new book? Get it, okay? The thing is a masterpiece. The Governing Dynamics of Coaching, a Unified Theory of Sport Coaching. Get it. I made the mistake of reading it on the flight, okay? That thing is, my brain is hurting. And you got to do it in chunks. But I'm telling you, you got to get it. If you think about Elite Fitness, okay, and I go back to 1999, I think it was, I was a graduate assistant at Arizona State. And there was a seminar coming to Tucson, Arizona. I don't know if Jim remembers this or Dave, but they were doing a seminar in Tucson, and Joe Ken and I were not able to go to the seminar. So we had organized ahead of time a chance to meet with them. It was the first time, I think, we all met one another. And so we drove down to Tucson. It was about 11 o'clock in a Mexican restaurant. And after about 12 bowls of chips and salsa, and we ate like 2 or 3 times, we ended up staying there until about 9 p.m. at night. Okay, so that was the first exposure and experience to Elite Fitness. Again, you start connecting the dots, right? Anybody that is really within my network has in some way, shape, or form been with these guys on the Q&A. The likes of Martin Rooney, okay, J.L. Holdsworth, to this day, close personal friend. James Smith, Buddy Morse, okay, Joe Ken. It's the who's who in this field, guys. And really, when you think about it, there's a commonality, and it was the Q&A back in the day. Okay, very fortunate to be. I didn't even know how much of an influence I would have until, when they asked me to speak at this conference, I just started kind of connecting the dots, and I was like, you know what, that was a really good time, and a lot of really, really good people involved with that. So, I want to show this because I had an intern come up to me, a kid out in the hallway. He asked me, take it down, please. Thank you. He asked me, how did I get into doing what I did? Or give me some advice. I'm going to tell you this. So this is from a site visit I did with Buddy Morse. I spent 5 days there with him. Okay, I'm going to tell you this. Buddy never gave me one single sheet of paper. Not one. Okay, all day long I was at his hip pocket. All day. And then when we got done the day, I trained with James Smith at night, took him to dinner, and then we talked shop the rest of the day. Just keep scrolling through. Thank you. Keep scrolling through. Every single thing they did, I wrote out. I asked so many questions. I had their whole off-season plan dialed out. And every night I got back to the hotel room, I wrote every single thing out that I remembered. I had a notepad and pen the whole time, put it in my pocket, listened, asked questions, went back and forth. This is what it took for me, because there was so much information, and I was in that mold of just growing and learning. I did not stop. I think there's like 36 pages of work where I went back to the hotel every night and reorganized my notes so that I can get a grasp of what it is that they're doing. Anything from, you can go up, let's see, keep going. There you go. Keep going. Keep going. Get through all this. Get through all this. I wrote everything down. Trust me, I was only there 5 days, but I got the whole program. It's because I asked a lot of questions. Okay? I mean, I had quotes. I had auxiliary programs. I had, ACL injury programs. Every single thing. Progressions, prehab, rehab, 5 days, okay? I engulfed myself. Now, this is something that I've always done. Thank you. This is something I've always done every year, even to this day, okay? I'm nonstop. I go visit Buddy every year in Arizona. We tag team. We go visit Dan Paff. Every place that I have an opportunity to go learn, I'm going. Tomorrow I'm doing JL's deal. It's nonstop for me, okay? For a couple reasons. I really value the profession, okay? I really do. But I will say this, it's outdated. It's outdated. It's really outdated. I'm going to get to it a little bit more when we start discussing some of these other things in regards to some of the ideas that James has. I'm really going to hit on. So today, this is what I'm going to discuss. Where I've been, where I'm at, and then, hey, where I'm going, okay? In those steps. So obviously, my path has taken me really starting from the ground up. I was an unpaid intern at Utah. I went on to be a GA at Arizona State, a coaching assistant, an assistant, a head in NCAA, right? And then an assistant in the NFL, then a head in the NFL. So really every step along the way. Again, a lot of great things, a lot of light bulb moments for myself. One in particular with my man, Joe Ken. It was, and I've told this a few times, but it means a lot to me. So the first day of work that Joe came from Boise State, he came in, and I remember he took his jacket off and he threw it on the chair, and he told the interns, and I was one of them, he said, hey, look, he told me, he said, you. I said, yeah. He goes, I want this tractor tire that's on the side of the practice field, and Jason will remember, on the side of the practice field in a ditch. There's 2 of them. Those MFers got to be on the turf by 6 a.m. I was like, all right. Well, it's 4 p.m. It's pissing rain. It's kind of slushy rain. It's January. I'm like, let's give it a go. So I went out there. I'm literally trying to pick these tires up. Okay? I'm slipping in the mud. It's in bushes. It's like in a ditch. There's no chance I'm getting these things out. I get out of it, and I'm like head to toe. I'm like, what am I going to do? I see one of our players, Sam White, come walking down. He just got out of study hall. Sam has this big dually truck. I said, Sam, I said, hey, you got a sec? Can you help me? He said, yeah, what's up? I said, do you got a ratchet? He said, yeah, I got a ratchet. I said, come here, help me for a sec. So I climbed up a scaffold. There was a scaffold at the practice field where they would film practice. I climbed up the scaffold, and I undid the cable attached to the scaffold. And I went down, undid the cable at the bottom. We took the cable, you know the end of the story, wrapped it around the truck, the tire, hooked it to his dually, and we pulled these up to the turf. Okay, the next day, I'm head to toe. The next day we get to work, and he was like, how the fuck did you get these tires on the turf? Well, the lesson learned there for me is what? Problem solving. I didn't want to let my boss down day one. I was going to do whatever it takes to make sure I got that done. Okay? Again, obviously that continued to build a great relationship with me and him, and he's family to me to this day. But a great story, okay? So I go on to Arizona State, okay? And one of the times when I was at Arizona State, when we initially got to Arizona State, we were a football-only staff. And I remember we ended up taking over the department. And it was a room like this where it was an all-staff meeting. And I was sitting in the back with Cheyenne Petrie, one of the other assistants, and House got introduced as the director of sports performance. And House got up there, and I'll tell you what, he said, look, he goes, we're going to have the best strength and conditioning team in the country, okay? We're going to be the best. Hear me out, the best. We got those guys back there, they're going to be the best. We're going to have the best performance team in the country. All you head coaches, you are not going to have a GA work with your sport. You're going to have a full-time assistant working with your sport. I'm sitting in the back listening. I looked at Shy. He looks at me. We have 22 sports. There's 2 of us. House obviously is only doing football. All the other sports were divided up between me and Shy. At that time, we were missing 2 people that we needed to hire. So what that did was I had a ton of experience and a ton of my time spent with working with all the sports. And to me, when I think about my evolution to where my thoughts are now, this is where it started. Because in my mind, right, that's Cain Velasquez, I coach him at ASU. That's one of our tennis players, Travell Quinley, Olympic long jump, and one of our volleyball players. In my mind, this was where it was at. And, I wasn't too much into the science back then because I just didn't know. I didn't know. I knew what I knew. But I said, if I can take the capacity, the resilience, and durability of a wrestler, the hand-eye coordination, agility of a tennis player, the explosiveness and spatial awareness of a volleyball player, and the outputs in speed and velocities of a track athlete, I got the ultimate football player. See, for me being in the NFL, I spent 9 years in the NFL. It's no coincidence. I didn't fall out of the sky. It was a plan. It was a plan that I had from the beginning. So what I did was I engulfed myself into all these sports to learn. I really enjoy working with these other sports. Okay? I do. Trust me, football doesn't define me, never will. Okay, just so happened that's a path I chose. Okay, so this was my whole thought process. And as I continue to learn more, I continue to question, right? I ask questions. In my mind, I'm thinking, you know, that's not right, or you know what? Why are we doing this? And if you think about the most fundamental component to human progress, it's criticism. You have to ask questions, okay? If we didn't ask questions, we wouldn't have people on the moon. If we didn't ask questions, we'd think the world is flat, okay? Ask questions. Again, strength and conditioning is outdated, okay? If you think about it in terms of this, what coaches, what athletic directors, what administrators, what GMs, what they know about strength and conditioning, okay, is literally the tip of the iceberg. We know what is the mass, which is unseen underneath the water, is what is possible, okay? And I'm going to go on and talk about James's blueprint because it's been heavily influenced me in my thinking. It just makes sense. And you can't poke holes in it because it is irrefutable in terms. And I'm talking to, you know, I'm preaching to the choir here. But if anybody knows anything about some sort of load management, it's the people in this room. I find it funny. We go to the NFL meeting, and does everybody know who Sherry Ma is? Everybody know? She's the sleep person, right? She's in charge of all the sleep in terms of research, performance, yada, yada, yada. We have a strength and conditioning meeting, and we're talking about sleep. And I'm just like, Sherry, you're preaching to the choir here. You should be talking to the people that organize the combine because they're dragging these kids around till 2, 3 a.m., poking and prodding, and then expecting them to perform the next day. We're not the problem. Let's get to the top. And so this has always been my thought process, is to question everything. Okay, from Arizona State, I went to Utah State. This is Heather Olmstead, a colleague of mine. I coached her as a player. She was an assistant coach at the time I was at Utah State, really my first mentee, who I took under my wing. She's gone on to BYU, multiple tournament visits, and somebody that I lean on tremendously, a really close friend of mine. And again, it's one thing to have a mentor, but it's even another thing to be one, have a mentee, right? To be one. And she is the first one that I really kind of helped gauge and guide, and still somebody that I lean on today. My time at Utah State, everybody always asks me, why'd you go from Arizona State to Utah State? Well, it was twofold. One, I'm Canadian, so I needed my green card. Second, yeah, it was during those years, right? So it was tough, right? I had to make sure they weren't kicking me out of the country. Second, I've just met a lot of really good people there, okay? Two in particular. One guy's name is Dr. Richard Borden. Okay, he was a former director and department head. He was also a physical therapist, doctor physical therapist, him and his wife. And what he would do in the summer times at Utah State is he would come visit and be a snowbird. I caught wind that he was in town, and I brought him in. I wanted to talk to him. So to me, this is nobody talks about this stuff, but the administrative responsibilities of being a director head or a head of whatever sport it is that you are a head of gets kind of bypassed. It's just kind of learn on as you go. But for me, in order for me to take that next step for what I wanted to do, again, this was an area that I needed to improve upon. You know, how are you talking to athletic directors? How are you fundraising? What's your budget? You know, my last year with the 49ers, I had a $1.5 million budget I was in control of. How many employees do you have underneath you? It's a lot of admin work, right? Again, nobody teaches you these things. So what I did was I brought in Richard Borden to come in and help me with that. If I wanted to get money from an athletic director, how was I going to do that? Right? He helped me with those steps. The other thing is, because he was a physical therapist, I got really hands-on with the rehab, okay? And I wanted to learn, because it's all movement at the end of the day. He would come in every Friday and do an in-service with my staff, okay? And so great guy, somebody I still talk to this day, and somebody I still bounce stuff off of. The other man, his name's Marlo Goebel. He was an orthopedic surgeon, invented a lot of the procedures as it relates to ACL knee surgery. Okay, I didn't even know who this dude was at first. I just saw this old guy running up and down the stadium, and we just got to talking. And it turns out he owns the hospital down the street, And so what he would do is he'd invite me down to the hospital and I would observe surgeries. Okay, I put myself in the surgery. He would stop the surgery, he'd tell me, he'd get an x-ray, he'd show this, that, whether it was a shoulder repair, whether it was a total knee replacement, meniscal tear, whatever it was, I was in. And I went like 10 times, okay? Because again, obviously these things happen. I wanted to be more knowledgeable as to what is actually going on, what's that process like, and then, hey, we got to get him back to playing. So those two guys, tremendously. The other thing that I learned, especially with Marlo Goebel, is in preparation for an interview, okay? Again, when I went to the NFL, the biggest concern in those times, like now, it's not as big, but when I got in the NFL, it was like, you don't go in the NFL from college. You guys aren't going from college to the NFL. Now it is. Back then, I was like one of the first guys to do that. And so their biggest concern to me, which I thought was laughable, was can he work with pro athletes? And to me, I was like, so that was a concern. So I knew that going in, and I knew I had to be prepared for the interview, okay? I got asked, hey, it was funny, I got kind of caught on a whim. I had House call me the one day, and he said to me, all he said to me was, NFL, you in? And I was like, yeah, I'm in. And he goes, click. And I was like, what was that? So I called him like 2 or 3 days, and no response. He wouldn't call me back. So I'm sitting there thinking like, what's going on here? Because, you know, at this stage, I'm ready to move. You know, I'm ready to advance. Well, I get a call. I'm in the airport. I get a call, and he said, and I'm at an NSCA convention getting my CEUs. And I get a call from somebody say, hey, we're with the 49ers. Are you interested in this job? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, we're coming down to LA to visit with you because they were in San Fran. I said, perfect. So I don't know nothing from nothing, never met the dude before in my life. I get interviewed. The following week, they bring me in for an interview. I got 2 or 3 days to prepare for that interview, okay? And one of the best pieces of advice I got was from Dr. Goebel. He said, look, first of all, he said, hey, lose the suit. He goes, I want them to see you. I said, okay. He goes, because, you know, the suit covers up if you can take care of yourself. And if you can take care of yourself, you can take care of the things I want you to do. I said, all right. He said, the other thing is there's going to come a time during that interview process where they ask you, do you have any questions? Okay? And he said, with their concern of whether or not you're going to be able to relate to players because they're professional athletes, that's a concern. So when they ask you that, tell them, are there any players around? I plan on spending a lot of time with them. Can I meet some of the guys? And so I'm sitting in the interview, and Coach Nolan had asked me, and it was like, here it is. I said, yeah. I said, any players around? And his face went, I said, yeah. I said, can I meet some? He's like, for sure. So I went in the locker room. Alex Smith, Frank Gore, and all those guys were in there. And I had known some of those guys before, but it was a great opportunity to say, hey, you know what? The professional world isn't that big. To me, again, I don't want to go rant, but at the highest level, sometimes it's not what you think, guys. Okay? And that's why I just had to get in the deal. So I got into the NFL. My first day on the job, what had happened, the 49ers had got the invite to coach the Senior Bowl. Okay? And so, one, I met the head coach and the head strength coach at the time. I didn't meet anybody else on staff. But the 49ers were coaching the Senior Bowl. So on that Thursday, they're like, you got to go down to Mobile, Alabama. Cool. So I get to the airport. I land in Mobile. They got a truck picking me up, a SUV on the tarmac. They literally throw me sweats and a whistle. And I'm driving up, and they're like, hey, you got to warm up the South team. I was like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, you know, the head strength coach lost his voice. He's sick. He can't make it, so you got to warm up the South team. I said, all right, cool. So I take the whistle. I get out there, and I don't know if anybody that has not been to the Senior Bowl, when you get to the Senior Bowl, there's literally it's different now, but there's literally every single scout, every single general manager, every single coach that is either in the stands or surrounding the field. I literally get pulled up in a Denali. I get out of the car. I got the whistle, and I just roll out there. And I'm seeing coaches that I knew and they didn't even know I had the job, and it was a real surreal deal where in my mind I was like, yeah, I got it. But inside I'm like, oh shit, like it was a oh shit moment for me that I was like, you know what, I'm fearless, I'm good, let's go. Confidence, right? Competent, and I'm gonna be willing to communicate, so let's go. I warmed up the whole group. So that was my first experience in the NFL. Again, so where I'm at now, so a lot of people have influenced my thought process. To name a few, obviously Buddy, James, Big Joe, Ken, Charlie Francis. This is Michelangelo. Everybody familiar with this? David? Michelangelo built this sculpture. And really, this really defines kind of my thought process. What you have here is a 17-foot slab of marble that in 1501 was started and 1504 was completed. One of the cool things about this statue is when they build it, they did nothing but chip away. Okay, they didn't add anything to nothing. So again, how does that relate to where I'm at? What is essential? What is essential? If you really go back to what is essential, you end up stripping away half the crap you don't even need to do. Okay? So I made it through 5. Okay, they got me this last time, but I made it through 5. Hey, low and slow, right? Low and slow. Stay out of the weeds. Don't shit your pants. Everything will be all right. So again, great opportunity. And I didn't know nothing for nothing, especially these first 2 years. And then when I got down here, I started to see kind of how the whole thing goes. And anybody that's been around the NFL knows it kind of can be a funny business at times. But what this provided me was with an opportunity. An opportunity to, 1, get to know more staff members. 2, to sit down with individual coaches and just talk to them. I know we talked about adapting and making changes, this, that, and the other. But I'm going to tell you this, there's a little secret. When you go meet with these guys, and you go meet with the position coaches, and you sit down with that coach, and you just ask, Coach, and I had the opportunity 5 times, so all new staffs every time. Coach, run me through here. What does it take to play that position? Just I want to close my eyes, and you tell me what the ultimate guy looks like for that position. Run through it for me. So I meet with our O-line coach. Well, he's got to be powerful. Okay, I got it. He's got to have great vision. Okay, I got it. You got to scan, recognize, blitz, that. You got to be mobile, right? So in football, right, with linemen, you're in the box, right? You don't have a lot of wasted movement. That's the key. Okay, got it. He's got to have speed out of the stance. He's got to be stable in contact. Okay, he's got to yield and overcome force. And then he's got to be able to replicate. Got it. So what I did with that was I organized all those things. Because when you start talking about training, I'm not going to start about the weight room. I'm starting right there. Right there. That's what is essential to play the game. And I did that with every single coach. Okay? Now, everything has purpose because you work back from the target. You work back from the target to what is demanded of these players. Again, so what's essential? That was my approach. Okay, so now I close my eyes, I got the perfect model. And I was thinking that years ago, I just didn't know. I didn't even know I was thinking like that. But I just knew these sports had different demands, right? What would be the best attributes of that sport? And I want to make sure I learn those. This sport, that sport. It all came to fruition. So you got your biological qualities, right? We went over them. Biomotor skills. Strength, skill, stamina, suppleness, right? All those. Okay, what are the physical outputs? You got your bioenergetic. What fuels it, right? And then you got your biodynamic, kinetic, kinematics, right? How are you moving? So with those in place, now, let me preface this first. And I know Buddy hit on it. Brain activity precedes all movement, right? We realize that? Everybody understands that? All starts here, right? Your sensory motor perception, your retinotopic processing, your spatial perception, and your pattern recognition, as well as your decisions. That's where it all starts. That's how the body moves. The brain works, that precedes that, right? So it's all predicated upon those. So then, once I have what's essential, I understand the qualities. Well, the game tells you what you need to prepare for, right? Alactic capacity. There's power, there's capacity, right? There's one to replicate, one with complete recoveries, one with incomplete recoveries. Everybody understand those concepts, right? And then what you go is, what are the competition maneuvers? Okay, what are we going to be asking these guys to do? And every position is different. Okay, so if I'm a linebacker, it may be speed to the ball carrier. Okay, that's a competition maneuver. What would be specialized developmental? Maybe resisted sprints. What would be a specialized preparatory? Deep knee bend jumping. Does everybody understand that sequence? Yes or no? Yeah? So you got the competition maneuver, specialized developmental exercises that repeat the task in its part or its whole, but it's not the task. And then you got the same type of muscle contractions that don't repeat the task. Deep knee bend position, right? Angles, acceleration angles, deep knee bend jumps. See how those all work together? So now it just brings the training, it comes all back to what is essential and what they need to do. They don't make them like that. It's called getting walked. Competition maneuver, right? Bull rush, tackling an opponent, getting out of the stance, right? Deep knee bend position, acceleration sprint, engaging in the bull rush, we're overcoming resistance. We're tackling the opponent. Same muscles involved, upper body portion of the bull rush. And again, more specialized preparatory. It's about the angles and positions, right? Don't worry about where he's going. Now you start seeing it come through. So you want to talk about specificity. It works back from the maneuvers. These are the muscles involved. These are the actions. These are the positions. These are the types of contractions. Okay? Simple stuff. And it always goes back to what is essential to play the game. Some other examples. Targeted training, right? We've got to work back from what the demands are. Again, no secrets here, right? Going to prepare, work back from the target. Buckeye, right? Carlos. Everybody see how that gets all worked together? Again, so now you have the components of training and really following Charlie Francis' model, the vertical integration model. And I say these because I found it just works. It works, and you you don't get into these problems of like reintroducing things and then all of a sudden it becomes a problem, right? So all the components of training, and again, we're missing a couple components here. The components of speed, strength, explosives, right? Technical, tactical, work capacity. All those components are in the program year-round, okay? But they may be scaled. They may be a little incremental. Does everybody understand in terms of extensive, intensive, explosive? An example for jumps, right? You got jump ropes, extensive jumps. You got maybe a box jump, would be intensive. You got like a broad jump for max distance, which would be, or repetitive box jump, a repetitive broad jump, which would be explosive. Okay? Anything can be scaled. That's what you got to realize. But as long as you're keeping it present, it never becomes a problem. okay? Just like your squatting movements, whatever. You know, you introduce it, you know, you keep it present. It could be just in the warm-up, and now you load it and you scale it, whatever it may be. But it's always present. Now it's a proportion of how you work those things, right? So Al Vermeil is one that I kind of follow as well. But this whole model is based upon Charlie Francis' work. And it just works. It works. So in terms of the specifics, the art of performance, right? That's the mastery behind everything. Okay? How do you dose, right? Very rarely am I talking reps and sets. I'll be honest with you. I'm just thinking more big picture than this, okay? And I say that because we just don't have control over all the variables. We don't. And we need to. We need to have. So that's the mastery where it all comes in, right? Again, for us, usually if you have a new head coach in the NFL, you're going to have a mini camp probably 3 or 4 weeks into your off-season training, right? So you better learn how to work back from there. What is going to be the demands of that and work back so that there's a smooth transition and a scale, incremental, to get to that. So you mitigate the chance of injury, okay? It was funny, last year I had a coach say to me, well, I want to go back-to-back 2.5-hour practices. And I said, why? So, well, you know, I want to see how they respond. And I said, we playing a doubleheader? Like, we're not playing back-to-back. We don't need to do that, okay? And the most elementary components and factors that influence loading need to be taught, okay? Because you know what it's like. Everybody's sitting in this room saying, well, geez, you know, hey, think of that coach that you're going to say, hey, look, coach, we're going to have to flip the script here and do this or that. Oh, fuck that. That's what they're going to say, right? Because they don't know. They're not knowledgeable. They don't have the education behind it. So again, when you go back to what's essential and you go back to that meeting with that coach, now he starts to figure it out. It's a great opportunity to have a captive audience and for him to listen. Hey, good, coach, I'm giving you everything you're asking here. I'm just going to help you organize it, okay? Because it needs to be organized. What's funny is you look at the tip of the iceberg, the mass, what's unseen. What's unseen is practice, guys, okay? And it's an inverse of what it should be, okay? How many coaches are going to get up there, football coaches, and watch a game and critique everything fundamentally? But yet you go back on the preparation, and those fundamentals are about 20% of the whole practice, your individual period. And it's the worst in terms of organization and detail. It's like, go over there for 20 minutes, come back. And you know what? The linemen, everybody knows it that's played football. Linemen, during special teams, they're doing some bullshit on the side, just wasting the stuff that you need them to get better at is getting them worse, right? And I'm not saying less is more and all that deal, because I think what we're doing is okay. It just needs to be reformatted and restructured. Totally. And that's the art in the specifics. Again, we're coming up on the combine next week. I don't know what to do with myself next week. I spent the last 9 years going to this deal. And again, it's a great time to catch up with friends and go work out at NIFs and hang out afterwards and that whole deal. But let me ask this question to you guys. And everybody's seen it, it's been a combine. Okay, you got 10 scouts at the 40-yard dash line holding a stopwatch.